anything. I'd cut. We'll be completely open phones today and a ton of news. I've cleared the decks. No guests today. We do have some big guests. I'll just leave it at that. Tomorrow, the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Let me just read over some of the news we're going to be covering today, though, after we get to a bunch of calls and all the issues and items that callers will bring up. There is a powerful article written by Paul Craig Roberts, Empires Then and Now, examples of how empires have fallen. We also have next phase of the surveillance state, nuclear-powered drones. That's from Infowars.com. The Guardian also reports U.S. draws up plans for nuclear drones. Technology is designed to increase flying time from days to months, along with power available for weapon systems. Lasers. They don't want to just use the big blimps. They're using solar and then storing it on batteries for these weapon systems. This is about playing God. And remember, who owns and runs it? J.P. Morgan Chase is at the very top of the pyramid. Rothschild, Rockefeller owned, on record. And they ordered Corzine to give them a couple billion to private bank accounts. And that's why the system hasn't indicted Corzine, who's been caught lying and caught ordering it. I mean, it's public that he ordered it. There's witnesses. The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, all these people publicly have worked for Corzine in the past. It's total conflict of interest, crime right out in the open. The head of the CME group has come out and said, of course, Corzine ordered it. His people were there and witnessed him ordering it, and he hasn't gotten in trouble. Now, he might end up dying, or he might end up doing a deal to serve a few years as the scapegoat. But as Max Kaiser pointed out, this is J.P. Morgan Chase that gave the order. And that's why nothing's happened, because they're above the law. So I go from nuclear-powered drones to these people because that's who's running it. People like John Corzine, who make 40-to-1 bets with people's private bank accounts, and then is ordered by the Mafia Don, the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, to get the money or else, and does it, and then no one gets in trouble. And that's why you're seeing the elite get crazy and say, well, put little nuclear power plants in aircraft, put them in satellites. And all the scientists say, but if that ever comes back into the atmosphere, which most satellites do, it's going to melt down and explode and rain down radioactive debris. And they're like, radiation's good for you. I mean, I don't believe David Icke, that some of the ruling elite, I mean, I understand he believes it. I think he's a good guy. But I don't believe that they are really, these shape-shifting interdimensional creatures. The Bible says, demons and devils are at the top of the hierarchy. So I can see that, religions have said this too. A lot of the elite believe that. That's what my Secrets of Prometheus film leaked, breaks down. Perhaps I'll cover it more later if I have time. But at a certain point, it would be easier to believe that off-world creatures that love GMO and love radiation were doing this. Because the radiation levels doubled during nuclear testing in Chernobyl in the northern hemisphere of the Earth. And now they've more than doubled again. And cancer is just off the chart. I mean, we're dying. I think in the final equation, that's what I'm here to tell you. We're being slow killed right now. The numbers are all there. It's 100% fact. And I'm not in some type of hate fest with even the minions of this system, because they don't know what they're doing. It's like Christ said, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I know that if the minions of this system knew what they were part of, there's no way they'd go along with this. They're wrecking this beautiful, wonderful world we've got. There's so much beauty, so much innocence, so much good in the world. People always say, why don't you be more positive? There's a lot of good stuff in this world. You got it good, Alex. Yeah, I know I got it good, because my forebears demanded liberty and freedom. They weren't perfect, but they demanded liberty and freedom, and so it created all this prosperity. I'm trying to keep it good. And the evil is growing and growing and growing and growing like a cancer. And I just want people to recognize it and to stand against it. That's all I'm trying to do. And I don't even think I do the best job. Just let me be clear about that. But this is about, what are you going to do? This is about, what are you going to stand for? Because we're in a time of great danger. All right, your calls straight ahead on the other side, and incredible news on a host of fronts. Stay with us.
We're on the march.
All right, I've just been ruminating, cogitating on air about my personal life because I'm just thinking aloud here, and I'm asking you, what are you thinking about the future of our society and where it's going? You know, I mentioned Joe Bannister going to break at the end of the second segment, Treasury agent who found out that the IRS was a collection agency for the private Federal Reserve, spoke out against it, and they tried to put him in jail for his free speech, and then a jury found him not guilty. But this is the type of system we're dealing with. And the establishment is trying to find more and more bad apples who will selectively enforce laws and then also persecute and go after good people who just get off on what they believe is winning, the raw exercise of power. I mean, I know there are good FBI agents. I know there are good Treasury agents. I know there are good federal marshals because I've been sent government documents. I've been sent things by good people. When I talked about Dr. Eric Pianka saying soon the airborne Ebola will be released and 90% will die and he and his family are ready to die and he's over the biology department at UT, I said something needs to be done. The FBI, if you have any decency, needs to go talk to him today. The FBI went that day within 2 hours of me saying that on air and questioned Pianka. And so obviously I know that there are good people in government, but I'm telling you, this is only going to get crazier and crazier and crazier until we start to really recognize that serious corruption is above us. The reason I mentioned Joe Bannister, we didn't have any guests lined up today because I wanted to just take calls, and I mentioned Joe Bannister, and he called in. If it is him, I'll recognize his voice instantly, and said, this is Joe Bannister. And in fact, I was thinking just last week about trying to get Joe back on. I was thinking about some of the guests that we had on years ago that we've never had on in a while. I guess I had him in studio a few years ago, Joe Bannister. So I definitely want to get him, maybe even on the nightly news tonight, if he can do it. I've now extended that invitation during the break to him via John up there in Minnesota, who takes the calls and then relays them down here to Texas. So we'll find out if he can do that. And then I'll get to Reverend Bruce, Robin, Sasha, Martin, and many others that are holding. And then I'll get into, speaking of selective enforcement, Judicial Watch has gotten documents. Department of Homeland Security to grant illegal aliens unlawful presence waivers officially. So it's like Obama launching wars without congressional approval or saying he'll kill U.S. citizens if he wants to. He says, I'll shut down power plants without a law. Well, now they're going to issue the illegal aliens unlawful presence waivers, but then deport for no reason people that are here legally and lawfully if they want to. See, they want all these laws on the books so they can selectively enforce them. So we'll be getting into that. Supreme Court ruling allows strip search for any arrest. I was talking last night to the crew about people now being arrested for no seatbelt just to get you into the system. And I found out 2 people in my office have been arrested in the last year for not wearing a seatbelt. And now you get strip searched. And now they're talking about taking blood. Again, the prisons are full of nonviolent people. Full. And then that's why they're releasing the violent offenders. Did you know if you look at the actuaries, a violent offender doesn't spend as much time on average as a nonviolent? Because they don't make good prisoners. They want to put them back out there to cause the crime so the public needs the system. But enough from me. Joe Bannister, we haven't talked in a couple of years. If this is Joe, is that really Joe?
Hey, Alex, it really is me. How are you?
Oh, yeah, that's you. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Great. Well, you probably know I'm a big fan, and I listen all the time. And I was listening this morning. I was actually shaving. I'm on Pacific time, and thought I better clean up for the day. And of course, I listened to your show, and you were talking about the, disappointment that all these FBI agents and feds, you cause them to have to decide what is true, what they do every day for their job and what they're told to do, or what the facts show that you put out every day. And I also want to say, Alex, I've never had a chance to say this, but you're the most pro-life person probably on the planet, because you look out for the lives of all of us. And the public probably thinks of a pro-lifer as just someone who's against abortion, which you and I both are. But you're trying to preserve life for everyone, no matter what color, no matter what age, born or unborn. And I just want to say that to you.
Well, thank you. But again, all I'm trying to do is just like you're trying to do is we do the moral thing because we love God and that's our conscience. But if you analyze it, it makes sense. If you want everybody to get a fair shake and for there to be real justice and security because you want your children to have a future. I mean, it's really elementary.
Exactly. And I mean, that was what motivated me to look into the tax issues. And I know that's what motivates you. It's really about a care and concern for our own families and realizing that our neighbors and our friends, they have families too. And it's really all about caring about your fellow man, loving your neighbor as yourself. And I can totally see that in you. And I just wish that more law enforcement people and federal agents would recognize that that's the motivation that we have. And that's the sole motivation.
Let me ask you a couple questions. Every time there's an excuse for the FBI to contact us about death threats on a message board, and so they ask me about the Obama deception, ask my employees about it, and start calling people randomly. Or one of my crew works somewhere else where they arrested the owners of a bar, and so they call them in, and they're asking questions about me. I mean, should I be concerned about that? Because I know that, and of course you beat them, with a trial. They trumped up stuff on you, a guy with no criminal record, exemplary record at the Treasury Department, an armed agent, who did the raids and all that. I mean, they tried to put you under the jail. So can you speak to that?
Well, there's definitely, you should be concerned, but ultimately, I'm sure you're much like me in that, your parents raised you to be a good guy, and not that we're perfect, but you run every day of your life knowing that God's watching what you're doing, and you try to be a moral person. So I think in terms of, that, I don't think you have anything to worry about. But
no, exactly. I mean, specifically, tell folks briefly what happened to you. I mean, this was in the San Francisco Chronicle. This was on record. They've repeatedly tried to put you in jail for your free speech. Tell folks about that.
Well, basically, the criminal part of the trial, I had a client who he had already paid his income tax money in, and he wanted to ask for a refund. And so
you're a CPA, for those that don't know, to interrupt. You're a CPA. Go ahead.
Well, actually, not anymore, thanks to the IRS.
Okay.
I was for 15 years. But basically, this client wanted to follow the rule book to ask for his money back. And so he asked me, well, how do I find out where the rule book is and what are the rules? So we followed that rule book to the letter, and the IRS turned that into a conspiracy to defraud the United States of America and claimed that these income tax returns that we filed to start this refund process were false. And they turned it into 4 felony counts that would have put me in prison for probably 3 to 5 years. Well, thankfully, one of the rights we still have is a right to a jury trial. And the government presented all of their evidence, and I didn't even testify in the trial. There was really no need to, because the government couldn't find any evidence that there was, I had done anything wrong, that we didn't follow the IRS rule book, or that we put anything false on these amended tax returns. And so the jury, I find out later after talking to the jury, they're looking at each other like,